A salesman named Woody Derenberger stopped his truck on Interstate 77 because something had just pulled in front of him on the highway. And then a man stepped out of it. November 2nd, 1966, a Wednesday. Woodrow Derenberger was heading home. He was a salesman for an appliance company out of Mineral Wells, West Virginia. A tall, husky man with close-cropped sandy hair and an honest, open face. 52 years old. A long life of modest jobs and hard times and constant movement. Renting one house after another, never quite settling, never quite arriving anywhere in particular. A good man living a quiet life. It had been a long day on the road and the weather was sour, cold and rainy. The kind of November night that makes you think about dinner in a warm house and nothing else. He was driving north on Interstate 77, heading up a long hill outside of Parkersburg, when he heard a crash in the back of his truck. He snapped on his interior lights and looked back. A sewing machine had fallen off the top of a stereo. No real damage. He eased his foot off the accelerator slightly. He had been speeding, and a car had swept up behind him. Another vehicle seemed to be following it. He thought it might be a police car. The vehicle drew alongside him. He glanced over, and then Woodrow Derenberger, appliance salesman, husband, father of two, a man who had spent 52 years in an entirely ordinary world, saw something he had no words for. It was not an automobile. It was shaped, he would say later, like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck, then enlarging in a great bulge in the center, charcoal gray, moving alongside him on the highway at highway speed with no sound that he could identify over the rain. It cut in front of him. It slowed. It turned crossways, across both lanes of Interstate 77, and stopped. Woody slammed on his brakes and came to a stop 8 or 10 feet from the thing, his headlights illuminating its underside, the rain coming down around it, the highway stretching behind him into the dark. He sat there. The engine of his panel truck idled. Other cars were passing on the highway. And then a door slid open on the side of the object, and a man stepped out. He was about 5'10", long dark hair combed straight back, skin heavily tanned, more tan than a November in West Virginia had any right to produce. He was grinning, a wide, open grin, his arms crossed, his hands tucked under his armpits. He wore a dark topcoat. Underneath it, visible at the collar and cuffs, was some kind of garment made of glistening greenish material, almost metallic in appearance. He walked toward the panel truck through the rain. He did not hurry. He was still grinning. Woody sat behind the wheel and watched him come and felt something he could not immediately name. Not quite fear. Something else. The feeling, he would say later, that he already knew what this man was thinking. The man wanted him to roll down his window. Woody rolled it down. The man leaned slightly toward the opening. The grin did not waver. And then something happened that Woody would spend the rest of his life trying to explain. The man did not speak, not aloud. Woody simply knew what he was saying. The words arrived in his mind fully formed, as if they had always been there and were only now being noticed. Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. I come from a country much less powerful than yours. The man asked for Woody's name. Woody told him. The man nodded. He gestured at the glow of Parkersburg visible in the distance, the lights of a small city on a rainy Wednesday night, ordinary and warm, and asked what kind of place it was. Woody tried to explain. A center for business and homes. a city. The man considered this. In his world, he communicated, such places were called gatherings. He said his name was Cold. He said he slept and breathed and bled as Woody did. And then, before Woody had fully registered any of this, the chimney-shaped object above them, which had ascended at some point during the conversation and was now hovering 40 or 50 feet above the road, descended again. The door opened. Cole walked back toward it without hurry, the grin still in place. He said he would return. The door closed. The object rose silently into the rain and was gone. Other cars had passed during this encounter. This is the detail that separates what happened to Woodrow Derenberger from most of the cases in John Keel's files. This did not happen on a deserted back road at 3 a.m. This happened on Interstate 77 during the evening commute. A woman named Mrs. Frankie Huggins, driving the same route with her 2 children, later reported stopping her car to watch an object soar low over the highway in the minutes after Woody watched it depart. Another driver said the object had terrified him when it hovered over his car and flashed a powerful, blinding light. Woody Derenberger was not alone on that highway. He was not the only one who saw something. When he got home, he was in a very distraught state. His wife urged him to call the Parkersburg police. They took him seriously enough to send someone. The next day, he was questioned at length by both city and state police. The story appeared in the local press and on radio and television. He told the same story every time, without variation, without elaboration. A man named Cold had stepped out of something on Interstate 77 and spoken to him without speaking and promised to come back. Turns out, he kept his promise. Cold returned 2 days later while Woody was riding with a coworker on Route 7 outside Parkersburg. Woody felt a tingling in his forehead, and then the thoughts arrived again, fully formed, as they had on the highway. Cold told him more this time. He was from a place called Lanulos. He described it carefully. A world very like the Earth, with the same seasons, the same kind of flora and fauna, the same rhythms of day and night. He was married to a woman named Kimmy. He had 2 sons. The people of Lanulos lived between 125 and 175 Earth years. There was no war there, no poverty, no hunger, no misery of any kind. When the transmission ended, Cold told Woody to brace himself, because the withdrawal could be painful. Woody felt a sharp pain in his temple so severe he nearly passed out. Woodrow Derenberger became a sensation. Crowds gathered at his farm every night hoping to see a spacecraft. His phone rang constantly. First, curious callers, then threatening ones, then something else entirely. Strange electronic sounds on the line, code-like beeps. The calls came even after he switched to an unlisted number, even after he changed it again. He gave interviews. He appeared on television. He told his story to anyone who would listen with the same flat sincerity, the same unhurried detail, same honest, open face. He was not a man who wanted attention. He had spent 52 years successfully avoiding it. But Cold kept coming back. Not just telepathically, in person. In a black Volkswagen, of all things. Knocking on doors and mineral wells with a companion. Asking neighbors about Woody. Asking what they thought of his story. Whether they believed him. John Keel investigated the case thoroughly. He spoke with Woody many times over many months. He found him consistent, credible, and increasingly isolated. The attention had come at a cost. His marriage suffered. His work suffered. The crowds thinned and then disappeared, and then came back and thinned again. And through all of it, cold kept returning. Keel had a theory about injured cold. He did not think cold was from Lannulose. He did not think Lannulose existed. He thought the story of the planet, the benevolent world without war or suffering, the long lifespans, the wife named Kimmy, was exactly what he called it: propaganda, a cover story, something designed to be just plausible enough to be believed and just fantastic enough to be dismissed. A way of filling the encounter with content that would keep Woody occupied, keep him talking, keep him returning to a version of events that could never be verified and never be disproven. Keel had seen this before. The men who showed up with brand new wallets and unscuffed shoes, the visitors who asked the same strange questions in widely separated cities, the figures who appeared, gathered information, and disappeared without leaving any trail that led anywhere real. What they wanted, he suspected, was not to be understood. What they wanted was to be explained away. But here's what stayed with Keel. Not the spacecraft, not the telepathy, not the planet Lannulose or the wife named Kimmy, with the claim that cold slept and breathed and bled, even as we do. What stayed with him was the grin. The wide, open, unwavering grin of a man standing in the rain on a highway, arms folded, hands tucked under his armpits, watching a frightened appliance salesman try to find words for what he was seeing. It was, Keel wrote, the grin of something that found all this very amusing. The encounter, the confusion, the desperate human need to make sense of the senseless, whatever injured cold was, wherever he came from. Whatever he wanted from Woodrow Derenberger, he seemed to find the whole thing genuinely funny. That detail, more than any other, is the one that doesn't let go. Woodrow Derenberger spent the rest of his life talking about cold. He eventually wrote a book about their encounters. He described visits to Lannulose. He described Cold's family, his home, the texture of a world without suffering. He described a relationship that had begun on a rainy Wednesday evening on Interstate 77 and never entirely ended. Whether any of it was real in the way that a highway is real, or a panel truck is real, or a sewing machine falling off a stereo in the back of a van is real, that question has no answer that will satisfy everyone. What is real is this. On the evening of November 2nd, 1966, multiple witnesses on Interstate 77 in West Virginia saw something block the highway. Multiple witnesses saw a man speaking to the driver of a stopped panel truck. Woodrow Derenberger reported the encounter to the police the same night and told the same story in the same words for the rest of his life. He was driving home from work. It had been a long day. The weather was sour, and a grinning man stepped out of something on the highway and said his name was Cold. Interstate 77 still runs through Parkersburg, West Virginia. The hill where it happened is still there. On certain rainy November nights, the traffic is light, the road is dark, and the lights of the city glow in the distance like a gathering. Drivers still pass that spot without knowing what it is, without knowing what had stopped there once, without knowing what had stepped out of the rain and grinned.